Can you believe it? Archaeologists got inside the Great Pyramid of Khufu and stumbled upon a hidden chamber. What a twist! You wouldn't believe what they found in there. Experts were just blown away by such a discovery. Today you will find out what secrets this mysterious room hides and what else this ancient artifact hides. Get ready for some sensational stuff, because there's a lot of interesting things coming up that you won't be able to tear yourself away from. A mysterious find. An international team of researchers working under the Scan Pyramids project has presented the findings of their study on the Great Pyramid of Giza, also known as the Pyramid of Khufu. During the analysis, a previously unknown area was discovered, named the Big Void. This anomaly is located directly above the Grand Gallery, a long sloping corridor leading to the King's Chamber. The dimensions of the Big Void are comparable to those of the Grand Gallery itself. The length of the Grand Gallery is about 152 feet 8 inches, while the length of the empty space is estimated to be around 98.5 feet. The height of this void is still a topic of discussion, but preliminary data suggests it could reach 26 feet 2 inches, which matches the height of the Grand Gallery. It's believed that this void could have been used for installing counterweights needed for lifting heavy granite blocks. Such technical techniques are well known to specialists in ancient Egyptian architecture. There's also a theory that this void served to distribute the load from the massive building elements onto the main structure of the pyramid. The discovery of the Big Void was made possible through the use of muon radiography, an innovative visualization method that literally allows us to look inside solid objects. This method is based on the use of muons, particles that are created when cosmic rays interact with the Earth's atmosphere. Muons can penetrate through many types of materials, including stone, leaving traces of their passage that are recorded by special sensors. Differences in material density cause changes in the trajectory of muons, which allows us to distinguish between solid structures and empty spaces inside the object being studied. What's inside the Big Void? Scientists were able to capture images of the interior of the mysterious empty space in the Pyramid of Khufu by using a small hole between the limestone blocks. A thin tube was passed through this hole, allowing an endoscopic camera to be inserted inside. The images obtained this way showed that the void is significantly larger than initially thought. The head of the research, Christian Gross, emphasized the significance of the discovery, noting that the presence of such a large empty chamber in the pyramid is astonishing in itself, especially considering the possibility that it could accommodate several people. Initially, scientists thought that the discovered void was a narrow corridor only about 16 feet 4 inches long. New data suggests that the dimensions of this chamber far exceed the initial estimates. The images show that there are no signs of human presence inside the chamber. It's believed that no one has entered there for the last 4,500 years, starting from the moment the pyramid was completed. Despite the lack of artifacts or signs of human activity inside this chamber, researchers are wondering what lies behind its far wall. Starting from the moment the pyramid was completed. Despite the lack of artifacts or signs of human activity inside this chamber, researchers are wondering what might be hidden behind its far wall. The answer to this question will be the goal of further research. Other hidden chambers. Besides the famous Big Void in the Pyramid of Khufu, there are other hidden chambers. In 2014, scientists recorded unusual temperature changes in certain parts of the pyramid's base. Some stones heated up noticeably more than others, showing a temperature difference of up to 43 degrees Fahrenheit. Egypt's Minister of Antiquities, Mamdouh El-Damadi, commented on these findings, suggesting that such temperature anomalies could indicate the existence of hidden rooms behind these areas. Subsequent use of muon scanning confirmed the scientists' suspicions. Two previously unknown chambers were indeed discovered at the base of the pyramid. One of them, resembling a corridor, is located on the north side of the pyramid and leads inside it. The second, slightly smaller one, is located next to the northeast edge. These findings once again highlighted how complex and layered ancient architectural masterpieces like the Great Pyramid of Giza are, and how many secrets they still hold. The purpose of the Pyramid of Khufu. The ancient Egyptians envisioned the afterlife as a continuation of earthly life, but in an improved form. The poor gained wealth, while the rulers became even more powerful. Initially, however, access to this afterlife was reserved only for pharaohs, who were considered divine beings. They could grant this right to their subjects. Pharaohs' funerals were held on a grand scale. Huge pyramids made of stone blocks were built for them, where not only sarcophagi were placed, but also all the necessary items for the afterlife: clothes, jewelry, weapons. Sometimes, along with the pharaohs, their servants were buried as well, and according to one version, they were entombed alive. The size of the tombs reflected the status of the deceased. Pharaohs aimed to build pyramids that surpassed the tombs of their predecessors in size. The most famous among such rulers was Khufu, the king of the 4th dynasty of ancient Egypt. Despite the lack of information about his life, he went down in history as the builder of the greatest pyramid, which still attracts tourists to this day. The history of the construction of the Pyramid of Khufu began approximately around 2560 BC, or so, although the exact date remains unknown. Herodotus first mentioned its existence in the 5th century BC. The design was carried out using all the available technologies and knowledge of that time. The site chosen for the construction was the Giza Plateau, where the ground had a particularly dense quality. The main material used was limestone, quarried from the cliffs, cut into blocks, and carefully processed. Each block weighed over 4,400 pounds, and there are still debates about how these giants were transported to the construction site. The massive construction of the Pyramid of Khufu was overseen by one of the pharaoh's most trusted aides, the vizier Himeyunu. This position at that time was equivalent to the modern role of a prime minister. After his death, Himeyunu was buried near the Great Pyramid, highlighting his significance and closeness to the ruler. The process of creating the pyramid lasted at least 20 years. The scale of the work is impressive even by today's standards. About 25,000 people were involved in the construction. Archaeological excavations in the 20th century uncovered a nearby village where the builders lived. The work involved in building the pyramid was incredibly difficult, so for a long time there was a theory that the construction was carried out by slaves. However, modern research proves that the construction was carried out by paid laborers who were compensated for their work. In addition, the analysis of the layers of the pyramid showed that the economic situation of the state changed during the construction. The pyramid has a step structure, and the height of the individual steps ranges from 5 to 2 feet. This indicates periods of abundance when more materials were used, and times of crisis when they had to save. The dimensions of the Pyramid of Khufu. The Pyramid of Khufu remained the tallest structure in the world for almost 3,000 years. Although this title has long been lost, its size continues to amaze. Originally, the base of the pyramid was square, measuring 754.5 feet on each side, which is equivalent to the area of 10 football fields. The height of the structure was about 482 feet. Over time, the top of the pyramid partially collapsed, and its height decreased to 452 feet 7 inches, which is roughly equivalent to a 50-story skyscraper. The height record of the pyramid was first broken in the late 19th century when the Cologne Cathedral in Germany was completed, dedicated to St. Peter and the Virgin Mary. The cathedral, with its tower height of 515 feet, became the new tallest building in the world. The structure of the Pyramid of Khufu. The internal structure of the Pyramid of Khufu is a complex network of corridors and several spacious rooms lined with stone, as well as a system of ventilation shafts. The entrance to the pyramid is on the north side of the structure, about 52.5 feet up. Here, the blocks spread apart, creating something like a window. However, in 2004, the entrance was sealed with granite stones. You can get inside through another opening located 32 feet 8 inches below the main entrance. This shaft was made in the 9th century on the orders of Caliph al-Mamun. According to one version, the caliph hoped to find the pharaoh's treasure. According to another version, his interest was purely of a research nature. In any case, it was al-Mamun who became the first person to enter the pyramid after the burial ceremony. the burial pit and the Queen's chambers. One of the main mysteries that has intrigued scientists is the location of Khufu's body. To this end, the internal corridors of the pyramid were explored. The descending corridor led from the main entrance to a chamber called the pit. These tunnels and the room itself were thoroughly studied by archaeologists back in the 19th century. It was found that other tunnels branched off from the pit, leading in different directions and downward, but all of them ended in dead ends. In search of Khufu's remains, researchers even dug a well in the chamber, relying on information from the works of Herodotus, which mentioned that the pharaoh was buried in a hidden chamber surrounded by water channels. However, the excavations yielded no results. Then the archaeologists turned their attention to the ascending corridor that was cleared by Caliph al-Mamun. This 131-foot tunnel has a square shape. Inside, there are 3 monolithic stone frames that the corridor passes through. Their exact purpose is still a topic of debate among scientists. From the ascending corridor, a 115-foot path leads to the center of the pyramid, which takes you to what's called the Queen's Chambers or Queen's Room. The names are arbitrary and not related to the purpose of the room, which remains unknown. The thing is, Pharaoh's wives were buried in separate, smaller pyramids. This room, lined with limestone, is impressive in size. It's almost 19 feet 6 inches long, 16 feet 4 inches wide, and over 19 feet 6 inches high. On the eastern wall of the Queen's Chambers, there's a niche, the purpose of which is also unknown. Where the ascending corridor starts the path to the Queen's Chambers, there's also a narrow but long shaft, about 196 feet 8 inches, leading down. About halfway along the way, there's an expansion called the grotto. This small chamber is located at the junction of the pyramid's foundation and a natural hill. Its walls are partially reinforced with stone, which has led to the theory that the grotto was originally a separate structure built on this site even before the pyramid's construction began. However, it remains a mystery how the workers were able to create a passage to this location with such precision. The pharaoh's chambers and ventilation shafts. The ascending corridor leads to a large gallery, a tunnel nearly 164 feet long and over 26 feet high, that goes straight into the heart of the pyramid, the pharaoh's chamber. This room is lined with black granite slabs, and by one of the walls stands a granite sarcophagus. Khufu's burial site found empty. Narrow corridors lead out. However, the first scientists who entered here found the sarcophagus already empty. From the pharaoh's chamber and the lower Queen's chamber, there are 2 narrow corridors leading to the surface of the pyramid, only 8 to 10 inches wide, making them impossible to pass through. Scientists suggest that these channels serve to ventilate the premises. However, the question arises, why is a constant supply of fresh air needed in burial rooms? One hypothesis is that the creators of the pyramid provided an opportunity for the souls of the dead to leave their final resting place and go to another world. Herodotus claimed the Great Pyramid was built for Pharaoh Khufu, but he wasn't buried there. This is supported by the lack of funerary images or inscriptions in his supposed burial chamber, as placing them where someone wasn't buried was sacrilegious. This is supported by the lack of burial images or inscriptions in his supposed chamber. Such inscriptions elsewhere were sacrilegious. Khufu's damaged sarcophagus is in one chamber, but he is not. Back then, putting such inscriptions in places where a person wasn't buried was considered sacrilegious. Even though Khufu's sarcophagus, which is heavily damaged, is present in one of the 3 chambers of the pyramid, the pharaoh himself is not there. Records from the 9th century by the Cairo Caliph confirm that nothing was found inside the pyramid at that time. There are 2 main theories regarding the disappearance of Khufu's mummy. The first theory suggests that the pyramid was robbed long before the caliph's intrusion. Since mummies weren't of interest to the robbers, they might have been discarded like useless trash. The second theory suggests that the real tomb of Khufu might be inside the pyramid, in one of the yet-to-be-discovered chambers. Periodic discoveries of new voids and chambers inside the pyramid support this theory. So, the search for the mummy of the most famous pharaoh of Egypt continues, and maybe one day it will be found. Objects near the pyramid. Not far from the Great Pyramid of Khufu, there are 3 more pyramids built a little to the north. In them, the wives and close relatives of the pharaoh were buried. On the southern side of the complex, there's a small museum displaying the pharaoh's boat, a funerary vessel that, according to ancient Egyptian beliefs, Khufu was supposed to use to travel through the afterlife. They were buried there with the pharaoh's wives and close relatives. On the southern side of the complex, there's a small museum displaying the pharaoh's boat, a funerary vessel that, according to ancient Egyptian beliefs, Khufu was supposed to use to travel through the afterlife. The boat was discovered in the mid-20th century in a special recess next to the pyramid. It's made of cedar, consists of 1,200 pieces, and is about 131 feet long. Scientists still aren't clear on how the elements of the boat were joined together. Since there are no signs of the use of mortar or nails on it, 7 similar storage chambers with boats have been found to date, but it was decided to leave them untouched. Researchers have repeatedly tried to access the supposed hidden chambers of the pyramid. Maybe soon we'll uncover new secrets of the Great Pyramid of Khufu. And I, my friends, want to make you an interesting offer. You have a unique opportunity to become part of our team. If you have video editing skills, can voice over videos in Russian, English, and other languages, or write interesting scripts, we would be happy to work with you. Message our Telegram bot. The link is in the description, and that's all for today. See you later.